The National League Championship Series continues today with Game 2 between the Braves and Dodgers. Coverage begins at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, only on FS1 and the Fox Sports app.
Now, Joy, you mentioned earlier, Clayton Kershaw's a scratch today.
Back spasms.
So good luck, because Atlanta can rake. They got all sorts of hitters. So this should be a high-scoring series. Once you get past your aces, there should be a lot of runs in this series. Peter King loves his baseball as well. Football Morning in America, joining us now live, NBCSports.com. So I watched Justin Herbert last night, and I got to tell you, Peter, Josh Allen was kind of a mess his first year. Mahomes got to sit and watch his first year. This kid's played Breeze, Brady, Mahomes, led all of them in the fourth quarter. I think we have a star. I mean, Peter, I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but I watched him last night, and that is what a star looks like to me. What was your takeaway?
I mean, what else can you say other than he was the best quarterback on the field, and the other one was Drew Brees? And, you know, I mean, Brees pulled it out of his hat late. He just did. But if you ask me, you know, for the length of the game, the best quarterback on the field was Justin Herbert. And on the road, and look, it's a big help to have no crowd there because, you know, clearly, to have no crowd in the Superdome for a Monday night game, or it would have been absolutely bonkers. That's certainly helped him. But I think he's terrific. And it's so impressive to me, Colin, that if you look at the first pick in the draft and the sixth pick in the draft, those are both quarterbacks, and both of them look like top 12, top 15 players pretty soon in their careers. And we haven't even talked about the guy who 1 year ago today, Tua Tagovailoa was he the no doubt number one pick in the draft 1 year ago today?
Yeah.
Yes. And he hasn't even touched the field yet, and I still think he's going to be really good. So it's crazy what's happened.
Yeah, we're really in the golden age of quarterbacks, and they're all great kids. Like, one of the things I've said this about the NBA and the NFL, we're so lucky right now. You just have great coachable kids. They work hard. And we also have 3 college quarterbacks coming out next year, and they're all seen as A to A-plus prospects. And that leads me to this, is that Matt Ryan, I watch him Sunday. He's 36. Arthur Blank's like, I'm going to start over. There's a lot of these Matt Staffords, Matt Ryans, they're Kirk Cousins. And I got to tell you, Peter, I watched Josh Allen. I watched Lamar. I watched these kids move in the pocket. And I wonder if I'm Atlanta and Atlanta goes out and gets a coach. I wonder if after a year they make them in San Francisco Garoppolo. It seems to me, Peter, that the tank for Trevor Lawrence, I'm not sure how many teams outside of Baltimore, Green Bay, Seattle, Kansas City wouldn't take him. What do you do with a Matt Ryan, a Matt Stafford, if you can get a great young quarterback? What do you do with them?
I think the biggest problem you have right now, Colin, is that if the Atlanta Falcons choose to move on next year from Matt Ryan, it's a $49 million cap hit.
Right.
If they choose to move on even 2 years from now, it's a $26 million cap hit. And remember, the cap's 198 this year, but the next year it's going to be 175, and there's a good chance the year after that it'll be around 175 too. So that, even $26 million for a well-managed team is a gigantic pile of dead money on your cap. And I know that Atlanta and Falcons fans are rapidly falling out of love with Matt Ryan, but as of right now, really not much of a choice. The only choice that you have, honestly, is because Matt Ryan's a great guy. The only choice you have right now is to basically have a new guy come in, and next year Ryan plays, and then after that you let the best man win.
Yeah, no, I think that's what I would do if I could get a Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. So I want to theorize something here. We mostly know who's rebuilding. Washington's rebuilding, Giants are rebuilding, Jacksonville's rebuilding. Nobody would dispute that. And then there's teams that obviously are not rebuilding. Baltimore, Green Bay. These are really good teams, really good rosters. But then there are these teams in the middle that don't want to admit it, but they are rebuilding. And I'm going to say this. Dallas is very interesting. I think they're rebuilding. They don't want to admit it. Right now, they've got an old offensive line, and it's mediocre. An old defensive line that's mediocre. They need a corner and a safety. Linebacker, they're very expensive right now, banged up, and a tad overrated. Tight end, they're okay, not special. If you take out wide receiver, they don't need that for the next 2 or 3 drafts, and running back, Pollard and Zeke are good, and I think Dak is their future. Could I argue that we just don't understand? I watched the Giants in Dallas. That's the same team. One has an offense, one has a defense. Dallas is actually in a rebuild, I would say, Peter. They just don't want to admit it publicly.
Well, I mean, you'd have to find out first about La'el Collins and Tyron Smith. And I think Tyron Smith, you're right. He's been getting banged up. He's now obviously out for the year. You have no idea what his future is. I'd want to know that before I would say that in 2021, I'm a rebuilding team. Because you have an explosive offense. Teams are able, look at Bill Belichick. He has pieced together a defense without his, the best guy on his front seven, Dante Hightower, the guy who might have played the best last year, Kyle Van Noy. He's missing all his good veterans, and yet he pieces together a bunch of Lawrence guys, and he makes a really good defense. So I'm not sure that defense is as hard to put together year to year as is a really good offense with a good quarterback. To me, I still think they can be the best in a bad division if Dak Prescott lines up opening day next year and he's whole.
So I watched Russell Wilson Sunday night. And Aaron Rodgers, according to PFF, has the best offensive line in the league and a better defense than Russell Wilson. And you've talked to Russell Wilson about this. I don't know who to compare him to. They're 5-0 right now with statistically the worst defense in league history. And Pete Carroll's supposed to be a defensive maven, but they've let things slide up front defensively. They had to kind of overpay to get Jamal Adams. Is Seattle to you a Super Bowl level team, or are they just an unbelievably fascinating team to watch with a superstar quarterback that will eventually be exposed because there are just so many holes defensively? Do you look at them and think Super Bowl team, or do you look at them like I'm increasingly doing and saying, no, Russell Wilson's the greatest football player currently on the earth. The rest of the team you could mostly have. How do you view the Seahawks?
I view that there's 3 events that I want to see before I can definitively answer that question. First event, is Jamal Adams back in 3 to 4 weeks? This team is going to make the playoffs. So is Jamal Adams back, and is he going to be what they traded for? All right. Number 2, Damon Harrison, Snacks Harrison. It's incredible that you've got a premier run player who's just on the street, not sure whether he wants to play or not, and you just picked him up basically for nothing. And now, I would say probably by the end of this month, he's going to be playing. Who is he? Is he a great run stopper still, or is he done? And the third thing I want to see, 2 weeks from now when the trading deadline happens, I want to find out what magic John Schneider can pull. Because to me, there's going to be a bunch of guys who can improve their pass rush that if you're willing, if John Schneider is willing to touch his 2022 draft, he's already traded his first 2 picks next year for Jamal Adams. And if he's willing to touch his 2 or his 3 in 2022, he should be able to get a player of some value to help him this year. And that's what I would like to see him do. Go get a pass rusher at the trading deadline.
Finally, Peter King joining us. Minnesota and the Niners are not quite as good as I thought, although Minnesota has lost close games to good teams. Pittsburgh and the Raiders are a little better than I thought. The biggest surprise in the league to me to this point, because there's a lot of stuff that I thought the NFC East was going to be bad. I like the Packers, Tampa Bay, Seahawks, Rams. I'm not shocked by a lot of what's happened. I picked Cleveland to be a playoff team. The shock of the league to me is Josh Allen. I can't explain it. He looks like a top 5 quarterback. That is my real shock of the NFL season. Do you have one?
I love the Josh Allen pick because none of us knew how much work he did in the offseason to make himself better. With his own private quarterback coach, Jordan Palmer, and with Tony Romo being his Josh Allen whisperer this offseason. He helped him out quite a bit. And that's why he's better mechanically. That's why he's a much more accurate passer. And that's why he doesn't play the game like he's Pedro Martinez, looking like he's got to throw 100 on every pitch to be successful. He isn't that quarterback anymore. He's a guy who has developed more of a touch and more of knowledge of how to play the game. I love that pick. If you had asked me, there's a very good chance I would have said him, but I might have said one other thing. I might have said how quickly both Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow look like.
Yeah.
And again, I know this is going to sound crazy. By December 1st, they both might be in the top 10 or 12 of quarterbacks in this league.
Yeah.
Now, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to look at Joe Burrow because they're going to be losing games. The Cincinnati Bengals have to be willing to say, all right, look, at the trading deadline, we're going to see if we can get a bag of footballs for A.J. Green. Okay, we have to move on from what we thought A.J. Green was 4 years ago. He's not that guy anymore. Get whatever we can get and live in the present, not in the past.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's crazy at all because Josh Allen's my shock of the year. And I told the team this morning as we were prepping for the show, I said, I'm not going to go to a second. My second is Justin Herbert. He's a star. I mean, that anybody that can make those plays last night, missing a right tackle, a right guard, a top running back, and Keenan Allen after the first quarter against the Saints pass rush and the best pure corner in the league, I'm sorry. That's a star. That's what a star looks like right there. Peter King, NBC Sports. We got to roll. Thank you, sir. Thanks for stopping by.
All right, Colin.
RecTech, more than grill, it's a lifestyle. A grill built by grillers for grillers. RecTech with a Q.com, RecTeq.com. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn